Now, most companies look at profits first. How do I do that? Okay, how do we do the client? And then employees last. It's complete opposite. All you got to do is look after your people, invest in your people. They'll look after your clients. Your clients look after your profits. Simple.
I wish we were in the same room because this is so infectious. Like, I've got goosebumps having this conversation. I can only imagine if we were actually like chatting face to face.
A company wanted to add one question into the underwriting flow. It took them 6 months to build that. And that's why when I was talking about earlier, Cam, do you know how long it takes us if we want to go from one question to 500 questions that all interlink? And do you know how long it takes us?
Tell me.
It takes 0 seconds.
I can only imagine how complex it must be to, at least within some kind of confidence interval, say that I can get a profitable policy on someone's life. How the hell do you take that and move it to something that's completely driven by AI in 3 minutes?
When your leader is enjoying it, it filters through. People can feel the energy. So very important.
But also we know entrepreneurship isn't all roses, successes, and product market fit, man. What were some of the difficulties that you really faced in that in those early stages? Hello and welcome back to the Founder Files. Today I'm going to be speaking to the co-founder and CEO of OneSpark, now known as Dis-Chem Life, Greg Smith. So obviously this is an exciting story in itself because we're taking one of South Africa's most disruptive insurtechs in the life insurance space, and also talking about now this partnership with 50% acquisition and partnership with Dis-Chem. So the nature of obviously being a startup, going into merging with a corporate, but seeing how excited Greg is about this. It's so infectious, and I can't wait for you to see the story around where it is that they are headed with this new opportunity. So as always, we get into what was OneSpark as a business, obviously now Dis-Chem Life, what was the founding story, how it really started, but then we get really into some meat of some important issues when scaling. One of which is how is it that we handle being the bottleneck as a founder? How is it that we hand over to other people? And how is it that Greg handled this point now where he has freed himself up to go full founder mode and go and unblock bottlenecks from other people in the business? We also speak about the problems around maintaining quality and customer experience as you scale, and how he's had to manage culture and translate that as the business has grown super quickly. And then we get into obviously the exciting crux of understanding what this partnership with Dis-Chem is allowing for the business. And it's just highlighted that, you know, the right partnerships can accelerate growth so much, the right team, the right leadership, and when things are aligned and you've got a clear, bigger picture that you want to go for, and the ecosystem to do so, the impact that you can make is incredible. And I will let Greg speak to that personally. Now, if you are as inspired by this story as I am, and you're not currently following the Founder Files, then you want to make sure that you are following, liking, subscribing now to make sure that you don't miss any more epic stories like Greg's, like OneSpark / Dis-Chem Life. So make sure that you like, following, subscribing now. And even if it's not for you, if you want to support this podcast, right, it's the best way to support us. It's also the best way to make me happy. All right, so without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Greg Smith.
Welcome to the Founder Files, the podcast that's like eavesdropping on a conversation with a successful entrepreneur over a fireside chat. Join me, Cameron Coots, through this unique experience of unfiltered stories and insights from scaling founders around the globe as they share their ups, downs, and everything in between.
Greg, welcome to the Founder Files, man. I've known about OneSpark for quite a while before you even became Dis-Chem Life recently. So I can't wait to hear the story. Can't wait to hear about this new chapter in your journey. So welcome to the podcast. I can't wait to get into it.
Cam, thank you very much for having me. Looking forward to it.
So Greg, just to, I guess, the first glaringly obvious topic, right? OneSpark, now Dis-Chem Life. Talk to me about that.
So yeah, I mean, look, it's something I'm very proud of. It's for the company, for the team, and you've got just such an incredible group of people who built this company around OneSpark with an incredible vision, to kind of really bring technology and insurance together and make real change in South Africa. That's really what we wanted to do, and that intersection. And obviously moving into the Dis-Chem Life and Dis-Chem world, it has just allowed us to scale at a rate and just really push what we want to do at scale so much quicker. It's just a really, really exciting time. So yeah, in a nutshell, I mean, that's where we are. It's just everything's kind of, I wouldn't say new, but very exciting again. Almost feels like I'm at the beginning all over again. So that kind of excitement is definitely there. But yeah, just a really good time for the business.
Yeah, it is a really exciting time, man. I think the possibilities that this opens up and the excitement that you must feel must be incredible. But I think we'll save that story for chronologically when we get into it. But it's just tell me a bit about the the acquisition, the rebrands. Just let's get some context on what's actually happened here, and then we'll dive into the business and the scaling journey.
Sure. So I think, look, in terms of what actually happened, I think, and maybe to tell the story, you've got two companies, which had so much in common, running kind of completely in silo. You had, and I need to explain. So OneSpark, is an insurtech company built on a chassis of real tech innovation. We've removed so many obstacles and made life insurance so much more convenient, so instant. I mean, we're living in a now generation, bringing the cost down, all those things, and really using our tech and the simplicity of product design, because it is, people don't really understand the market, how things work and stuff like that. That's what we really did there. And a founding mission statement to fundamentally help South Africans. For me personally, why I started the company, my driving force was that I could never accept that I couldn't push South Africa in the way that I wanted to. Something is very, very important in terms of helping ordinary South Africans. I love South Africa. And, it's why I moved back from the US to come back and start the business here and push and everything. And I'm happy I did. So that's one thing. So how it all happened. And then you have Dis-Chem, a company which, granted, very much a lot older, a lot more established, but the founding kind of core principles around innovation is there, right? Driven by innovation, driven by a team who wants to push forward. Within the kind of core strategy now is to actually make healthcare accessible and affordable to as many South Africans across the board. It is such an incredible goal, right? So when you look at that of innovation, when you look at it of genuinely helping ordinary South Africans and doing something so good, I mean, the two things that change society are education and healthcare. Like those are the two things fundamentally. There's other things, but those are main things. You get those right, you can fundamentally change a country. Basic needs, Maslow's hierarchy, exactly, Cam. And so for me, when you look at that synergy and you see kind of the distribution, you see the innovation that, Dis-Chem want to do, you see the genuine help that they want to do, for ordinary South Africans. And our mission statement is around that. It really was it was an incredible, I even remember sitting in that boardroom for the first time and pitching, and I was just like, this makes so much sense in my head, and that's kind of how it started. And it's been an incredible journey. It's been almost 2 years since we had the first discussion, obviously launched about 2 months ago. But the synergistic relationship and kind of the vision of both teams, it's incredible. So, I mean, that's at a high level, but yes, that's kind of how the two worlds came together.
Yeah, awesome, man. I can't wait to get into the details. Obviously, we just need to get a lot more context in terms of how you got here before we get into that. But one thing that stood out to me is just I love how pumped you are about Dis-Chem, right? And the reason why I say this is because we look at many corporates in the world, in South Africa as well, and they're very dehumanized entities. But you're so inspired by what they're doing. You're so inspired by a shared vision and mission. And it's just great to hear that. It gives me a bit more, I just got a kick of like hope about South Africa and where we're going at a corporate level, also at a startup level. So yeah, thank you for sharing your passion and inspiration with us.
I think first of all, likewise, guys like you have incredible South Africans that are still prepared and still want to fight and still see, a better future. And I love that. And when you talk about innovation and passion, I think you also got to look at the Dis-Chem leadership team, Cam. I don't know how much you know about it, but, they're led by an incredible leader, Andrew Roy, who's a guy who will go up on stage and wear sneakers, at an event. And so talk about, innovation and pushing boundaries. So it's not that typical corporate feel. And when you start digging deeper, like the tenacity of the Dis-Chem team is unbelievable. The ambition, like how we gel and how we work together. I think that's given me a lot of that has allowed us to actually just kind of bring our goals just so much quicker and allow us to kind of innovate further. So it's been an amazing journey alongside them.
Yeah, cool. Can't wait to get into more of that. But I think I just want to understand the business now, right? Talk to me about what, we'll go back to the OneSpark story before we come back into the Dis-Chem Life story. Tell me about the idea, what you founded, what the product is, and really what that first value proposition was.
Cool. So I think, when we looked at the market, and this is not just in South Africa, this is globally, right? We saw a few gaps in the life insurance. And look, life insurance is a product which, and it still is, very much sold, not bought. People don't want to talk about death. People, you don't wake up and be like, okay, I want to talk about when I die, what's going to happen. People actually don't like talking about bad things. So you kind of carry on and whatever. And I guess what gets us to that point is two things. One is cost, obviously, if it's seen as expensive, like you don't want to do that. And also there's quite a mission to do it in the current global environment. You've got to go, traditionally, you've got to go to an advisor. You've got a 40-page form, which you've got to fill out by hand. And then you got to send it in. Then you got to go for medicals, and those medicals can take a week, a month. And then invasive. I mean, no one likes getting pricked in their arm and taking bloods, and it's something that you don't really want. It's a grudge purchase, right? So you have to start thinking about, well, how do we change that? How do we actually make it in our generation? We give value to people. We make it so much more convenient at a much lower price. I mean, that's how you do that. So when we looked at it, what we tried to do was do that. We brought tech in such a smart way into the world where we made the underwriting process, cutting out tons of cost in it, taking it from that month, let's call it a month, a week, a couple minutes to 3 minutes, you could take it out, you can secretly, while we're chatting, just go online and take something out, and actually have fully underwritten life cover in that time. Not even, I'm talking about literally while I'm like talking over here, you could quickly go sign up. And for me, that was the first thing. When you make it convenient, someone can do it on the couch, they could do it while watching their kids play sports in a Dis-Chem. You can be waiting for your medication and take out a policy. But that convenience factor is amazing, right? So you cut out the negative connotation of medicals, of bloods, of all the time. And then at the time, we were able to have a product to market, which is about 40%, 50% cheaper than the market. So you're really offering, and at the same time, comprehensive cover. So Cam, like the one thing I am so passionate about, amongst many, but the one thing I am very passionate about is offering comprehensive good cover, right? It is something that, when we looked at the design, it's something that I will take, but it's something that I'll sell to my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister. That's how much I believe it. There's so many things and inefficiencies in global life insurance. We sought to change all of them, make it more efficient, pay for what you need. I mean, that was the original idea, was pay for you need life insurance. It was only for what you need. There wasn't cross subsidies. Cam, when you bought your policy, you didn't have to pay for me, which traditionally is there, but I'm not going to get into that. So when we do all this, we design comprehensive, really smart cover at an affordable price and very convenient. And that was kind of how we started and where we saw the gap. As you learn along the journey, it pivots and changes a bit like a river. But that was the core fundamental statement, and actually still holds today, fundamentally.
Love it. Love to see the passion come through. What I want to understand is that I can only imagine how complex it must be to, at least within some kind of confidence interval, say that I can get a profitable policy on someone's life, right? And so that's why the blood tests and all this, and it's like, what's the risk? It's just, I can only imagine, the most complex statistical model I know is multiple regression, but I can only really imagine the statistical models that are happening here to be able to create some kind of predictive outcome. And also, you need to personalize that to an individual. How the hell do you take that and move it to something that's completely driven by AI in 3 minutes?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. Firstly, and secondly, I'm very impressed. Multiple regression is not easy, right? That I'm pretty impressed. So I like that. You did good.
I had to do that in my master's. So as a psychologist, it's actually just statistics, to be honest.
No, it is. It's all the hypothesis testing and all of that, and then building your curves. And I've seen incredible papers around it. So, but still, it is quite complex to understand. So good on you. I think the fundamentals is one. If you start as an actuary, which I am professionally, you are taught the basic fundamentals, right? That is the starting point. When you study, you're taught how to predict, you build these models that do that. The key here, when going from medicals, which is super, exactly, people, their blood pressure, their glucose levels, their sugar level, all those things, right? Here, the key is to be able to model on a data set that is big enough that the technology that we bring is as accurate as blood. And you can do that. So you can structure it twofold. One is a tech thing, is basically based on data, modeling it and getting that confidence to do that. And the second is actually a behavioral psychology thing. And it's something I'm very passionate about. Behavioral psychology, and I promise you, psychology.
Things Greg's passionate about.
No, but this is actually beyond everything. I sit there with ChatGPT just learning about it because it's so amazing to understand how the brain works. So with doing the technology side, you also have to structure your questions in a way that you elicit the right answers from people, right? And there's certain ways to structure questions that get more accurate than other. And you plant these differently and you can get the exact same experience that you would get fully medically underwritten. And to say that on that, we are the case study probably globally with our reinsurer. I don't want to go too much and divulge what they say. But they did a case study of experience basically with underwritten and non-underwritten. There's various others, but we're a large component of that. So I can't say that's the only one. There's various ones. But the underwriting model, if you do it correctly, bringing tech and behavioral psychology and immersing them together, you basically get the same experience as fully underwritten, which is an amazing outcome. Well, humanity, I guess. But you can do that. And that comes outside of all the intricate modeling. It's how you assess your risk accurately, and the tech and the psychology needs to have an interplay.
So, but what I'm curious about there is the validity, right, to a specific individual. And is this just got to do with there's just so much data over time that risk tolerance is this, and so we can handle this much by not knowing the X amount. And it's the reason why is it's like for Cam, who's got like degeneration and lower distal spine, generally has some joint stuff, like has ADHD, has this kind of health profile. Like it's quite a comprehensive thing to get some level of accuracy. One thing I'm just still not wrapping my head around is like how even for me as a customer, how do I know that that's an accurate assessment of me? Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm buying life insurance in order to, protect my family upon my potential passing, and that's kind of the main view. But like, it's the risk element. Like, I'm still not really wrapping my head around this. Also because I'm not an actuary and I know nothing about insurance. But help me out here.
Listen, multiple regression. So if you ever want to spice up your day, I've got a few models for you to run. So Cam, so it's such a good question in the sense that you're asking about the assessment of risk in your direct case. Like, how do we do it and how do you know it's accurate? So I think, again, to explain it, we need to understand how the market currently works. So if you go to a traditional insurance company and you go and apply for it, you do your 40-page form, you will go for bloods and medicals, and then you will go through, based on that, you may go through additional questions and stuff like that. Then it goes to a manual process, somebody in the back, and they'll say, okay, Cam is X, Y, and Z. I mean, they will follow some rules, and they say, I give him whatever, either standard rates or a loading based on whatever. That's how it works, right? What we've managed to do, and I guess we're starting to see an absolute explosion of the trust of technology through, whether it's Grok 3, whether it's ChatGPT, there's a real trust of how good it can be. We built that system where our trees, and it is about assessment of risk, have billions of different outcomes. So Cam goes through, you'll go through one tree, ADHD, whatever, back something here, all your things will start talking to each other. So we don't have a set of tests like traditional guys do, where you come out with a thing and then it's human intervention. Ours at the back end is so smart that it starts talking to each other and starts combining on all those things. It does learn over time, but that's how we get to probably a billion, maybe even trillions. I can't even quantify, but we provide accurate assessment for almost everyone because it's so smart. And again, technology never makes mistakes. Like, that's the thing. It runs through the trees, understands the risk, assesses it. That is a beautiful thing. And I think that's what sets us apart in terms of our risk assessment.
I would love to know what else that model can be applied to, but maybe that's a coffee, a dinner, or a beer or something sometime to just, to completely go into the ether of what's possible, what you built, unless there's a short answer to that.
Any flow in the world, doesn't have to be insurance, anything where you want to ask a certain amount of questions and you want to get to an answer in a complex or simple way. You can have one question, 100 question, and you want them to talk to each other, or you want to just run through, trees or whatever it is and skip and users information doesn't. Our system can do that anywhere. So it has many, many use cases effectively. Then that's from part of our system, but yes. Yeah.
Very cool, man. Again, another reason why there's so many possibilities in front of you, but maybe that's a significant future situation. But let's get into the tech for a moment, right? It's like, I think when we were offline preparing for the conversation, you were like, bro, we have to talk about the tech chassis. Unpack that for me. Why? Why is this so important?
I love how you started that with brew, because it's exactly how I talk. So yeah, which is a lie. So the tech chassis, and I think you touched on it, and I think you pick up quite quickly on these things because you actually kind of answered it in the way that you spoke about it. But the tech chassis that we have built, right? Again, come back to the relativity of it. In the market, it takes a month to get insurance, but also from a traditional insurance company, if they wanted to build an online platform, because in South Africa and global, you will always have different components of your population. You will have traditionally a younger, more tech-savvy generation who doesn't want to speak to a call center agent or go in or talk to anyone. It just wants to buy online, and you have a solution, in terms of that. So, and again, so the reason I'm saying it is you have various people in your target audience, but the tech chassis, right? If another company wanted to go the direct route and wanted to sell to Cam directly and online, if they want to change one, and I won't get too much into the behind the scenes, I'm going to give a simple answer. If they want to add one question in, right? Just one question, and I've heard this. A company wanted to add one question into the underwriting flow. It took them 6 months to build that. And it's because their back end and their front end are designed differently, and they have to talk, and the integration. And that's why when I was talking about earlier, Cam, do you know how long it takes us if we want to go from one question to 500 questions that all interlink? And do you know how long it takes us to build a completely new system?
Tell me.
It takes 0 seconds. And basically, we don't need any developer input. We built it such that we define the trees. Okay, maybe not 0. I mean, someone has to define the trees and put them in. But the actual dev work is we don't need developers to actually build it. Do you know how powerful that is? So think about the continuous learning cycle that you can do. Is as more data comes in, and we're not even talking about Dis-Chem data and all the pharmaceutical and clinical and that stuff. Think about all the data that just comes in, how quickly we can learn, how quickly we can change, how quickly we can adapt. And that's a kind of the thing that I believe we're always currently where we far ahead of many, many players, because they're stuck in, okay, this worked 5 years ago. And to make that change is 6 months of dev work and testing systems. For us, we can do that with 0 dev requirements. And that's kind of where that chassis really puts us in a world of our own.
Okay, so I'm running completely on intuition and assumptions right here, because this is far out of the realm of my expertise. But I mean, like, a couple of things that I know and assumptions that I'm running with is that in the world of insurance, it's an extremely heavily regulated industry, which means that, I don't know how underwriting works. Same thing as, like, I don't know how the black box in an airplane works. But the point is, it's like underwriting is going to be very, very well governed. So there's going to be very strict rules in terms of what is it you can apply to this and how it is that you change this. And that's traditionally probably what the industry is formulated around. So what I'm understanding from what you did is around okay, how is it that we can build something where the rules are there and applied and the structure and it meets regulatory requirements, but then is open enough that we can input, it's flexible with the data and the inputs that I can give in terms of what it spits out, but it still maintains this rules of how things work. But the difference with other people is that because of the heavy regulations, they believe that in order to make changes, they need to start the process again in terms of how this unfolds.
So a lot of what you said, I agree with 100%. We are so regulated and rightfully so. You know, like, you're putting a lot of faith in a company when you're no longer there to pay out large amounts of money to your family. Like, you don't want people to misappropriate that. And I get that 100%. The regulation traditionally deals with more the way we market, the way we sell, disclosures, more around claims assessment. And that's where I think your assessment's really good. I think from a traditional sense, guys, it wouldn't be so much the regulation. It would be generally the tech. Remember, insurance companies, big ones, globally, are old companies. They already are. And if you look at South Africa, some insurance companies are 160 years old. You're going to have large, old infrastructure that cannot, it's just too much, basically to make that change is so much effort, it's just not worth it. So you're not consistently learning. So it's more of a tech problem. The regulation at an underwriting, it's really the insurance company that takes on that risk. It's that if you come in and I don't assess and I get it wrong, then I'm going to lose a lot of money. And at scale. So it's really, but there's protection mechanisms because there are things that protect the consumer. So, like, you can't just hike up your premiums if you haven't done it. But the real fundamental here, it's more here in terms of the tech, and that guys they haven't built this infrastructure to allow them to be flexible and learn. And again, if you look at any of the models today, the power of a ChatGPT of them is that consistently learning. And that's what keeps you ahead. You cannot have a good product in a year and think it's going to be a great product for the next 10 years. You're going to fall so far behind. And the more you learn, the more convenient you make. So it's really the chassis that sets us apart of what we decided to build. So, yeah.
Cool. That makes sense. Sort of.
No, I mean, it's, I guess I'm trying to not get in the complexity, but it's basic to say that we found a very smart way to assess risk quickly, and we can innovate quickly on that and make changes. And changes and learning is what it's about. It's not where you start. Guys can't do it because they're tech. The majority worldwide, it's legacy issues, and they haven't built it. We built our system in I'm going to explain it, and then maybe it'll make sense. We built a system where everything's on the back end. So you change it all on the back end, and it very speaks to the front end. And again, it gets very technical in the way it does it. But because we can do that, and it doesn't require dev work, that it's very easy to make changes, and then that filters through. I mean, that's that kind of high level, but again,
I'm following it in a basic principle, but it's like it's this problem of me being so deeply curious and wanting to understand something that I feel like I need to go to basic principles of understanding actuarial science and also like computer science to really start actually grasping how good this is.
Yeah, you need a full actuarial degree plus kind of a very, very like an engineering degree. Put those two together, and then you can see where the ecosystem. But again, very layman's terms, everyone else will take them a year. Let's call it 6 months to a year to make changes. And again, it's about feeding in data and learning. And that's the key to, as a story, you'll see how Dis-Chem plays such a big part, because that health data is so rich. And that's what life insurance is about.
Well, again, pulling into the realm of what it is I do understand as business strategy means that that's an incredible competitive advantage and edge that you have within the market. And it's testament to why you've been able to move so quickly. And I mean, just besides the fact that you're outpricing the competition, you're also providing so much more value to your customers at the same time. So that's a perfect segue. I mean, to get into the point now is like that initial go-to-market, figuring out what your core market was, finding that product market fit. Tell me about that story.
That's in the OneSpark world.
Yes. Yeah, we're still Act 1. Act 3 will come in with Dis-Chem Life later.
It's almost interesting because it's almost founding two companies. So I'm going to talk about them slightly different. So market fit there was, I think, a lot what I've spoken about. And again, I truly believe, and I try and knock it within our internal culture. You got to fall in love with the problem, understand the problem, and then solve on top of that. I mean, we spoke about it. And the problems, in terms of market fit, originally was takes too long. It's very invasive for life insurance, medicals. You're going for bloods. People don't want that. Taking a month. It's very complex. We try to simplify it, and it's it's just not affordable for the majority. I mean, if you look at some of the take-up rates in South Africa, I think only 11% of South Africans actually have a form of life insurance. And traditional life insurance. So it's not a big taker. There's a massive gap, and people aren't taking it for various reasons, but those are the ones that I want to highlight. So when you look at that, and we traditionally looked at market fit, we wanted to create that tech component and get to the market with a convenience factor. We launched that, and it was pure B2C. We were direct to client, and then kind of pivoted slightly to realize that we want to be an enabler, where the real value sits with us is our platform that we can enable our agents and advisors to sell more. And again, I think I said at the beginning, insurance is sold, not bought. It is so true. I don't think, Cam, you wake up any day and be like, cool, I'm going to go buy 10 million rand of life cover. It's just not, someone had to remind you of the need and actually put you in that thing, and, Cam, your family and this and your future, and, something happens to you and you're like, oh, okay, maybe I should. So we quickly realized that we want to become an enabler. And once we realized that, then market fit was incredibly quick. So we had the tech chassis. We knew we could sell to direct, so we continued that because there's always a segment that doesn't want to talk to anyone. But the real joy we found was when we had agents or call centers, very big in South Africa, and advisors. I'm going to give you a simple stat, right? Traditionally in the market, a life insurance advisor, on average, again, depending on company, I'm going to completely talk about averages, maybe it will sell 4 to 5 policies a month. If they shoot the lights out, maybe 8 to 10 in a month, shoot the lights out,
Per advisor.
And that's really per advisor per month. They're shooting the lights out the best, but let's call average 4 to 5. Let's make it simple, right? In one day, and this is when we knew we had market fit, one of our advisors in a single day, because you could sell policy in 3 minutes, sold 8 policies in a day. Okay, and that's better than, think about that, in one day. So we quickly realized that we need to enable advisors. We need to make their lives easier so that they can go and they can sell right there and then. I'll tell you a great story. One of my heads, when I knew we had market fit, was he was casually talking to one of his friends, right? And trying to sell him life insurance as everyone does, and everyone's like, no, I don't want to hear about it. So he said, no, I was with company X. Doesn't matter the company X. I'm with company X. It's easy. I don't feel like doing medicals. And so our advisor turns to him. He says, listen, bud, you don't have to do medicals. He said, and the guy says, no, what do you mean? And he says, and he's having like a Energade or something. He said, listen, before you finish your Energade, it was half full. Before you finish Energade, I will give you life cover. I'd tell you I can get you on the system or whatever it was. I don't know, I'm making up a number, 5 million rand in disability. Shrews Bob, before he finished it, the cover was done and it was sorted and he moved over. Like, that's the thing, and that's the kind of closing you want to do. So enabling our agents, and that's, and we wanted to do it with compliance all around, and that's what we said, okay, this is scalable, and that's how we started our journey.
That's amazing, man. I can just sense so much, well, not sense, it's obvious. Your enthusiasm for this is like, I can see you reliving those moments when just everything's a go. But also we know entrepreneurship isn't all roses, successes, and product market fit, man. What were some of the difficulties that you really faced in that in those early stages?
Sure. The early stages, look, I mean, it's an interesting thing, and you're a founder, so you would understand this as well. It's funny, in the beginning, you have problems, but everything is excitement. It doesn't matter. They come, you roll with the punches, you find a solution, everyone's up for it, the fight. It's kind of like in the middle of the journey where it gets a little harder. But, in the beginning, yes, everything was new and it was fun. We're putting this very young, ambitious team together, and we had this mission statement. I think the hardest thing was, truthfully, so I was living overseas. I came back just before COVID, right? And the hardest thing was that it was 2020, COVID just happened, and we had this idea for a life insurance company. And you have to understand the context of the world, right? The world had shut down, right? There weren't advisors running around. There was very little business going on. And unfortunately, a lot of people were dying for the next 2 years. Now we're looking for investment. We're looking for backing of our reinsurers, who at the time they were on board, and we did. We had an underwriter. So at the time, you have all these people, asking, is it a good idea? And obviously, we believed in the mission statement and doing that. And I think what I found is that what was slightly difficult. So we obviously started, and for me the biggest thing was, and it wasn't even difficult. It was kind of like, it was just like, you sell a dream to people in the beginning, because that's what it is. You're like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to change. And people believe in that dream, leave their corporate jobs, their big salaries, and fundamentally are just coming in to believe in you and what you're putting on the table, And it's something that I've always been very passionate about, fighting for my people, And I think the hardest thing was that one or two things, happen and things don't go there, and every founder's been through it. And it's never the script that you tell. And, sometimes it was difficult. I almost felt like I was letting my people down. Like, I sold this thing and, we haven't got to where we want quick. It was difficult. Like, COVID was hard. And then South Africa went through the third wave and the looting, and, and you have all these things and you're not driving your business as you should because it's difficult. I mean, South Africa's a lockdown. So I remember, so that was difficult for me personally. I just remember, like, I got to carry on fighting for them. But it's so nice to have a strong team and founding team. I'd lean on my other co-founder. Well, there's technically three of us, but the two original ones, I'd lean on him and have those talks. And I found a lot of comfort in having a very strong partner in that. So, that was something personally. But, as a company, I don't be cliche. For the people listening and the founders, you all been through it. There's cash flow this, you don't hit your numbers. This isn't working. You have a customer who says this about you and unhappy, all those things. But you learn to ride with it, and you find ways that work for the business and yeah.
Yep, 100%. So now let's get on to the other side of it, where when zooming out and getting abstract, problems can look similar, but in the micro, the solutions aren't the same, right? Now that's the nature of the scaling journey. So talk to me about this kind of second act when you're like growing super quickly. I mean, when we were chatting offline, like a point that you made that I love and is super valid is like that first policy is hard. Those first 10 policies, super hard to be able to sell. But like once you start getting from 10 to 100 is easy. Getting from 100 to 1,000 is even easier. So that's not the hard part, right? Is once you figure that out. What is the hard part?
I'd like to pause here for a moment to talk about why it is that we run the Founder Files in the first place, why we've done over 100 episodes, and why we have no intention of stopping anytime soon, and how it is that we go about actually funding this so consistently. And to start off with, the purpose of the Founder Files is to give established entrepreneurs practical stories and insights from people that have been there before, so you can avoid years of trial and error in scaling your own business. And the reason why this is so important to us is it relates very directly to what the purpose of Metavolve is, which is the entity that funds the Founder Files in the first place. And that is to accelerate the time it takes for entrepreneurs to build businesses that are able to thrive without them. Practically what that looks like is our mission statement, to ensure that as many founders as possible can take a holiday where they actually switch off whilst their business keeps growing. And the reason why this mission is so important to us is because as many entrepreneurs, we built these businesses to potentially work less, right? Have a sense of freedom. But we found ourselves working harder than ever. And we thought when we conquered these original problems around survivability and getting to product market fit, we then achieved growth. And then the nature of the problems that we have now fundamentally changed. And we found ourselves working harder than ever, right? We're working longer hours, we're making harder decisions, people are coming to us, we're having to put out fires, and it can feel so intense, and we're constantly getting pulled back into operations because of the fundamental reason that no one knows our business like we do. And this is where Metavolve comes in. We use strategy as the process to really download all of your knowledge, all your thinking about your business, about your market, about your product into your management team so that they can be empowered to execute while you focus on growth or frankly doing what it is that you want with your time. So if you want to hear more about what Metavolve does and how Metavolve can help you attain a new level of freedom in your scale up, then click on the link in the description below and let's have a chat and a curiosity call to see how I can share some of the insights I've learned from working with and interviewing over 200 business owners in the past 3 and a bit years. But that's it from me for now. Let's get back to the episode.
So the hard part, as you said, is getting to one. So getting that first sale and then getting other people, to convince them also that your product is good. And I'll never forget, it's funny because scales are so different at different points in your company, and I'll never forget when we sold the first policy And I'm sure you can remember your first interview and you convince somebody to give up their time, I'm saying your thing, spend with you and trust that the process, with no track record effectively, and trust in, you as a person, believing in you, and yours is maybe more of a personal thing. Ours obviously is a company because, in terms of life insurance and funeral is quite a serious thing.
I am the product.
And yeah, you are the product. So for a large time, I was the product. So I completely get that. And for me, it was a very proud moment. I remember that was kind of like, that was really cool. And then, yes, getting those 10 people to do it. So what was difficult in the beginning, right? Really difficult was and I think maybe you'll kind of pick up, as a company, we're very tenacious. We're a company that pushes boundaries. We don't like, if you look at the product offerings that we have now, what we had there. So we started with a product called the Millionaire Funeral Plan, right? Now this thing was amazing. So basically how it was is, we don't have it anymore, but basically at the time it was, if you claim, you get your powder funeral cover. And if you don't claim, you get R1 million. I mean, how amazing is that? And it was such a well-designed product, for the majority of South Africans, that you're protected. And if you don't claim, you get R1 million. And it varied, but it was such an outlandish product offering. Now you have to understand that we have big guys behind us. We're underwritten by, Guardrisk, and Guardrisk are 25 years. They're part of the MMI group, Momentum Metropolitan. We've got January as our underwriter. They're owned by Berkshire Hathaway. Big guys, in our corner, and putting out this thing, such a credible value proposition. People like, you guys are fake. Like, this is not real. I'm not taking this out. Like, I don't believe that this is possible. So for me in the beginning, it was quite hard to actually convince people that we are a real company, that we will be around to pay it, and so forth. So those were difficulties in the beginning. And those are, as you said, very specific to us and convincing people. Also, you'd have people saying, well, I've never heard of you. How, like things like, how long have you been around? And we just started, so you don't have credibility. Or where are your offices? It was in COVID. We didn't have offices. So you couldn't even get that physical. In South Africa, a lot of people want to walk in and see the physical. Again, when you're buying life insurance or funeral cover, you need to know that that company is going to be there for your not for you, for your family. So yeah, in the beginning, that was very difficult, and we had to get quite creative in it, but you do get over it. I think it's social proof as some people start buying and go, and it's customer experience. We really put a large part on that, and we wanted that word of mouth, and that if people hear of us, there's good things to say, and they tell their friends, and the value prop. So that's how we kind of solved it. But again, that was our kind of thing, and it's very specific to life insurance over everything else, and even more than other insurance arms, because if you want to buy cell phone insurance or car insurance, yes, that's more about convenience to a large degree. Yes, you need to know credible, but life insurance is very, very personal. It's very, very emotional, and you need to know that a big company is going to be there. So that was kind of, the difficulty in the beginning, just getting that credibility.
Yeah, no, I think that's the same for everything, man. It's like, even for us, it's, we're in the world of like strategy advisory, right? And so we're helping founders with their businesses, but it's more getting the thinking out of their head, structuring it, and getting it into their team so they can execute while you get freed up to focus on growth and innovation where you want to be. But the problem there is, Correct. It's like, okay, well, where's the credibility to do this? What's the background, etc.? And it's like, there's reasons, right? Otherwise, I mean, I'm going to go down my own rabbit hole, basically just pitching my business right now. But there's still these challenges of credibility, and it's like, well, why should I buy from you? And that takes time to solve. And the nature of it is in any business, and it's the simple principle of human beings, and that's just trust. Right? We want to work with people, with brands, with organizations that we trust. And for different people, that happens at different times, right? And there's different reasons why we'll trust. This is the adoption curve. We have innovators, early adopters, early majority, etc. And I think the point there is it's how willing they are to trust new things. I'm going on a philosophical rabbit hole, but that's the point at the end of the day. It's like, how is it that you can build that credibility to enhance trust as fast as possible? Now, talk to me about what happened once you solved that, right? Business is growing quickly, hiring left, right, and center. Like, I love this, like, framing, even just as a principle. It's like the 100 to 1,000 is easy, 1,000 to 10,000 is also easy. There are other things that now suddenly become hard in running this business. What are they?
Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head. So once you realize how to set, and I always say one's hard, 10's even harder. Convincing one person is easy. Convincing 10 people's hard. But then you kind of get to just what works. You learn a lot. You make a lot of mistakes. Everyone does. And then you learn, cool. You can scale business, right? And getting numbers in. I think the difficulty for us, and I think every company going through that is twofold, is making sure, provided that it's an important play in your business, and I hope it is to people listening, is client experience. That's everything. You have to. Like, client experience that can be a referral mechanism in itself. Like if you get that right and people like value your brand and what you bring to the table, you can generate so much business. So the reason why I'm saying it is when you're scaling, yes, you maybe sell it, but can you keep that same level? So you're hiring a lot of agents and advisors and new people, and you're going at a rapid pace who may not be as immersed in your culture as, the more seasoned people who understand what we're about and the soft touches, and that's not just a sale, there's a person, and how do you do those things? So what I found was that, your quality, the thing that we found was that your quality may dip, and you've got to be very hands-on. You've got to have the right people. You've got to have your quality assurance team, your client experience team on it. They need to make sure that those things stay in place and understand that it will dip. You can't be too harsh. You will get new people and there are teething things, but it's not about understanding it will dip, but how quickly can you get people right back on and what monitoring processes and measures you have in place. That was a big thing for me. And the second thing was also understanding, and we spoke about it. I think it's such an important point for founders and people going business. I think people have this kind of chip on their shoulder, and even startup founders, CEOs. And something that one of my best friends also started quite a few businesses. He told me, and something that's always said, he said, a startup CEO may not be the best CEO, like who gets the business going in a growth phase, in a stable phase, in a acquisition phase. And I think it's something that stuck with me is that, and I'm humble enough to say, I'm not the right person to grow, to lead the business at that point in time. You have to, move away and let the right person, because you're invested in your people and success. And the same kind of thing, I believe in different divisions. At different points, we realize that, people who are immensely brilliant at doing X and managing X, we moved it to, what they're more strong at, or keeping that in, because in a startup world, you have people, I'm an actuary, and the amounts of things that I've done, I've done legal, I've done accounting, marketing, performance marketing, all that stuff, and everyone does. So it's moving at the right, so the key is moving responsibilities to the right person at the right time. It's about the right time. And that's a big thing. Like if I could go back, understanding that earlier would have been a massive help just across the board. So for me, that was a really good learning curve, and something I know going forward. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to put in both of those so we can pick up both topics, but it's really about the quality and customer experience as you're growing and scaling. Like it's going to get worse before it gets better because we need to change as a company now. Right, love that as a topic. And then the second topic that I really want to get into is that point of really when you're starting to hand over because you're wearing all the 7 hats, all the hats. And at that point, you realize that you're a bottleneck. And it's that realization of it's like, okay, I need to change this. I really want to get into what are those bottleneck points and how we hand over. I'm going to let you choose. Which one do you want to start with? We're going to do both topics. I'm going to talk about the quality and customer experience problems when scaling, or the problem of being the bottleneck and handing over.
So bottleneck, because I think every founder over the client experience will, everyone will struggle with that at some point in time. Letting go, I would say. Yeah.
Cool. Then talk to me about what was that first bottleneck when you realized the timing was like and the you wish you knew it sooner. What was that? What was that first bottleneck?
For me personally, sure. I can't give an exact moment, and it's not. It's different points within the company that maybe I'll speak it to more broadly because I can't think of an exact moment, but I just know that with the broad leader, the founding team, right? Because, and this is any startup I would say, is that you're immersed in everything. So Cam, you have so much experience. Like the people in the company that we've hired are brilliant. They're far smarter than I am, right? And it's just the experience that you have to know to bring this and that. I've seen this is how it works. That quick kind of cognitive, okay, no, dang, this would kind of be the
intuition.
Kind of the solution. It's true intuition. You trust it. I just trust my guts. I just kind of know where it's going. So that is so valuable, right? And you get to a point where, as you said, you become the bottleneck because you have so much on the go that you're trying to help with too many things. And I think for me, it was certain things that I knew were so critical to the business that and I'm just speaking personally because it would happen to all the founders, but I knew guys were waiting on me and I couldn't find the time. And what I mean by time is you're getting pulled the whole day by different things. And I needed a sort of 2-3 hours to sit down, go through it, whatever it is, put it together. And because it needs to be done. And I could just feel that things were, waiting and they needed it. I'm quite OCD, so I like to get things done. Like my inbox has to be 0 and everything done. So I would actually just try to kill myself to do it. But I could see things were getting slow from my thing. And that's when you, as a founder, and this is the hardest thing, every founder will struggle. And I've seen it even internally with guys to actually give over and say, I know you are not going to be able, in my head, it will never be at that level first time. And I'm okay with that. It will be wrong.
Yeah.
There will be things wrong. And when you, and the thing is not about that's how people learn. You have to give them the opportunity to make mistakes and move forward. So yes, you're sacrificing on a bit of my time and my leadership's time and potentially speed to market and whatever the change is, but you're investing in people. So when, I don't know when it was, but a time when I'd be very passionate about our people and investing. And when I realized that, I need to start, instead of just trying to do everything, invest in people so that the company can be there without me, and that was the kind of turning point. It was probably I can't remember when it was, but when I just a very simple rule, right? There's 3 pillars, or there's 3 things in your company. There's your employees, there's your clients, and there's profits. Now, most companies look at profits first. How do I do that? Okay, how do we do the client? And then employees last. It's complete opposite. All you got to do is look after your people, invest in your people. They'll look after your clients look after your profits. Simple. They're actually just the most simple thing. Companies do that, will do very well. If you do the opposites, well, maybe not do so well. And the point is, when I started to realize that, and I've always been very passionate, but I realized I needed to invest the time and stuff. I think that's when it opened up a lot. And that's something that I preached to my leadership. And even some guys I can see resisted because they still wanted. And I'm trying to get them to say, like, guys, listen, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to maybe miss this or miss that. But in the greater scheme, that learning curve is so much more important for the business. So I think that's how it's a realization when you realize you're the bottleneck and then making the change. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. What my brain's been ticking away while you were talking about that is that, in the fundamental early stages, everything's about the customer, right? Because within any business, the whole reason why a business exists in the first place is because we have a customer. So, but the difficulty now is that in the early stages, because we're doing everything, the customer is the most important thing to us.
Was.
And the problem is like, as we start getting and having other people, we still hold that mindset, which is why we hold on to anything, because it's also very valid. That is like, I can do this better than you, right? And I know for a fact that I can. So it's way easier for me to just do that. But now that's the transition between, it's like, okay, cool, but now you need to be a leader and your business needs to be a leader. And it's this difference between the fact that it's like, okay, your business strategy, your business still needs to prioritize the customer fundamentally, but you as a leader now need to prioritize your people. And now you need to uncouple those and make sure that your business is handling the customer, and now you handle your people. And that mindset now changes. And now when you realize that you're that bottleneck in that moment, now it's because the biggest challenge in solving that is not just the handing over, it's actually creating space, prioritizing, and actually like handling it properly to someone, coaching them, giving them the time, and then doing that. And you can't do that with everyone at once because you're wearing all the hats, right? So how is it that you pick which ones you go down? And it's uncoupling essentially the business strategy from you, getting that out of your head, giving the space, giving to your team. That's the process. My full name's Cameron, easier said than done, Coots.
It's such a great question. I think all founders, even when you're in a more stable position, it's still always survival mode in the beginning. Even when you're growing, there's always runways, there's always targets. And the reason why I'm saying it is because you're always in survival mode. The business, you're always thinking around strategy. You're always thinking, how do I do this better? How do I get us to where we need to be? What strategy? What's not working? You've got to do leadership. And very, I don't actually ever ask them what's going right. So I say, where the issues come? I need to know what's going wrong, and how do I, remove the bottlenecks, as you said, the red tape. I actually, literally last night, I sent to my leadership team, I said, where the bottlenecks, where's the red tape? I want your emails in, and then I want to go and remove it for you, because that's my job. I just want to make your life easier. So the hard thing is you are always in survival mode as a starter. I don't even know when you leave that, I don't know when, but you're always in that thing, especially in the beginning, in the first few years. Now what you have to do is decouple that and understand that you have people around you and it's still going to go, right? But you need to start investing that time in those people so that they're gaining. And there's a $1 million question, but the way I would say is that you have to understand that incremental that you constantly focusing, and the short term, yes, may give you a gain of X, but investing and giving that knowledge to your people, I think that's what I realized is going to give you X times 10, in the medium term. And you have to understand yes, you're always in survival and you're always doing that, but you have to understand that the short to medium is where the real gains happen, and into that. And that's kind of what I realized. And my time, a lot of it is in terms of helping guys and giving the time. And then you get your leadership so strong where we're very fortunate that they're imparting those knowledge. And for me, it's a lot around just direction now, and removing their red tape, making their life easier. So it's understanding time horizons. I think that would be the most important thing that I realized.
Yeah. I mean, Greg, but as founder to founder, I can't help myself. I need to share this because it's a realization that's actually happened for me this week. Is that, I mean, we're almost four years into the journey. Like everything we're talking about, I'm so deeply passionate about because our mission is to ensure that as many entrepreneurs as possible can take a holiday where they actually switch off whilst their business keeps growing, right? In order to do that is like the fact that the problem that's getting in the way of that is being the bottleneck. And our solution for that is how do we download all your knowledge, all your thinking out of your head into your management team so you can be freed up to focus on growth and innovation and your team focuses on execution. And and just on that, it's like we've known this for a while, right? There hasn't been an issue in the products. But what's that problem that we're solving? Like for so long, we've been a vitamin, a very compelling vitamin, like a great one that's in the market. People engage with us, build a relationship, try it out, and they're like, wow. And then the results kind of speak for themselves. But what's that problem that we're solving for? And it's again, we've gone full circle on this, but it's really the most obvious one of solving that bottleneck issue. So what's clicked for me now is like, this is where I'm at in the journey of like, I've got this new lease on life and enthusiasm, because it's like, yes, I actually know how to communicate this that other people get, because now even the fact that we talk about this, you're like, oh my God, yes, 100%, I know that problem so deeply well. And we've figured out a way to actually really meaningfully make a dent in that. And that's what I'm super pumped about.
So wait, what is your solution? I almost want to, I need to get my leadership team around it. Cause the crazy thing is that it's almost stepwise. It's the weirdest thing. So as a founder, I understand that. I know things may not, I'm a perfectionist by nature, but I know things aren't going to be 100, but even if they're 95, that's fine, and the growth that happened. And I'm finding at the low levels, guys, I still need to knock in a little bit. So teach me, you can be my Buddha over here. What's the secret?
Cool. Okay. So let's go back to a couple of fundamental points and principles. Business strategy is 3 steps. Your crafting strategy, you calibrate resources in order to achieve the strategy, and then you execute. That's pretty much it, right? On the crafting strategy side there's a lot of thinking that goes into it, right? There's a lot of unpacking. Where do we compete, right? Where's the need? Who are our customers? Who's our ideal target customer, right? Let's figure that out. Now, how do we compete, right? Who's our competition? Who else is trying to meet that need for the customer? How are they doing it better than worse than us? So what is our product? What's special about our product that our customers actually care about, right? What are the things that they don't care about? And that's super important. Now, what's the customer experience that we want to give? Like from beginning, before they even know about us, through to being advocates of us, it's like, what are all these things that we need to unpack? And now, how do we want to grow this, right? It's like, do we want to just stick in the core market that we're in? Do we want to expand geographically? Do we want to start new products and new ranges? Are there other business models and opportunities? Do we develop these partnerships or like merge with, large corporates in order to accelerate our mission? There's all these options for us, but we also need to be guided by our vision and our mission and our purpose and our direction and the goals that we want to achieve. So that's the very complex part about strategy. And so the frustration and versus the calibrating resources is now like, this is our SWOT, right? These are our annual goals. This is what we want to achieve. These are our key metrics that are important to the business. This is the funding that we have available to us. And now it's like, okay, cool. Well, what do we need to do using our SWOTs, and what strengths do we need to leverage to achieve that goal, right? Or what weaknesses do we need to address? What do we put in place? What plans do we have? And then what are we prioritizing for the next quarter? Who's doing what? Go, right? So that's really what the process is. But the biggest problem that happens when people are really formulating strategy is that it's always done in the same approach, 2 or 3 day offsite, right? And then you go around a room, you analyze the performance of what happened last year, and you spend half the time actually just looking into the past. And then it's like, okay, well, actually, we've got time now and we need to come up with what our plan is for the next year. But those fundamental questions that are complex, you've got different perspectives, you're realizing you're making assumptions around how your customer base is changing, what they'd rather do than buy from you. Like there's so much information there that really guides how your business is successful that can't really be done in a 2 or 3 day process. So what we figured out with us is not just like a structured process to guide this, but it's weekly 2-hour workshops with the founders and their management team, because all that knowledge is in their heads, right? And it's not just the stuff that works, it's the stuff that didn't work and why. And that's that depth of understanding of the fundamental reason why the business is successful and why we're headed in that direction. That's what the management team struggles to grasp. Because yes, they got onboarded and they get this explanation, but there's still that depth of understanding that's not quite there, that you see someone like after maybe like 9-12 months, like, okay, now I get it, right? Versus now is going through that process and chipping away weekly allows them to not only embed that thinking, but develop as a leadership team. This is how we go about thinking as a team about our strategy. And that's why this process works. So it's not really, not just enhancing the capability for the business to actually develop its own strategy, but it's at the same time developing the strategy for the business and downloading all that knowledge and thinking from the founders into the team. So when they execute, they've not only contributed to the strategy, but they also deeply understand what's actually what the business is trying to achieve. And that's why it works. And that's why like we've had clients that have achieved like 4x growth within 9 months of working with us, like from plateauing for 2 years to like 63% increase in net profits. And okay, I don't know what the percentage changed, but net margin went up in 6 months after working with us, and taking a 10-day holiday for the first time ever, both co-founders, same time, 10-day holiday, no laptops for the first time in 13 years. So like that's like that, and that for me is the number one metric. So this is there's the full spiel. This is why it works.
Cam, I think you found yourself a customer here. I think what you're saying is so brilliant, and it's something that you stop kind of remembering, and it's downloading that knowledge. That's what it is. And if you can, it's focusing on those things, but giving the people the experience. Yeah, I mean, I've never thought about it like that. I mean, I've had all these ideas in my head of like, how do I get like, but it's as simple as that. And that's how you accelerate that. And the psychology behind it makes so much sense. Like, it's actually a very, very well done. I mean, that's like, you solved the $1 million. I said it was $1 million question. There you go. You know, take the money. No, it's really cool. It's really cool. Well done.
Thank you. And so that was the fundamental missing piece for me, in terms of the fact that like the value there is there, the results there, this is the product, but what is this all solving, right? And just this realization of formulated around, it's actually this problem of the bottleneck. That's the thing. Last thing I'm going to mention on this, then we're going to get back to the conversation, because the solving the bottlenecks for other people I want to get into now. But a huge reason why it works as well is because it's actually a multi-month journey, but it creates this habit on a weekly basis, because it's so hard to put your management team together at the same time for 2 hours a week. And now it's forced that habit. And now with that and the scorecards and the execution plan and the OKRs, there's this rhythm of meeting once every 2 weeks. So the ability to adapt, be agile, respond, and work together afterwards is now embedded into your like culture as a management team as well. And that's also another part of our secret sauce that just continues.
I really, really like that. Just speaks to like, anyway, we're going to chat offline. I'd like to pick your brain. It's really, really cool. I mean, that will help so many people. You have no, like, it's really, really cool. But yeah,
you can even see as like when I start getting passionate, my neck goes a bit red. So like I'm super pumped about this now as well. So yes, we can definitely chat about this.
Amazing.
Okay, on the bottleneck problem, right? One thing I love is the fact that in many ways you've solved this for yourself, but now you're trying to solve the bottleneck issue for your management team, which no one's ever simply described it that simply for me, but I just love that from a leadership perspective, because like in the early stages, you're used to just being chief problem solver, right? So it's like everyone comes to me in terms of make the decisions, solve the problems, but now it's like you're like the chief like unblocker. And so give me some examples around, you know, what you're able to do now with the freedom that you have to really help your management team.
So it's funny when you catch, I guess, different founders at different points. So you asked me a couple months ago, like building out Dis-Chem Life. I mean, that was just all hands on deck, like build, like get stuck in where I needed to. And post launch, it has given me a bit more time. And what I want to do is in leadership, my role is twofold. My role is to inspire my team, that they can walk through walls, that they can achieve anything that they thought they could and more. That is number one. That is leadership, right? The second part of leadership is for me to make their lives easier. That is my sole role. And what I can do now, and because I have time, I never had the time 6 months ago to send out the email and actually start thinking about all the other guys. And I did this last night. And once I'd be interesting to see what they come back with. But it's now for me to go implement that. And, you know, I don't know if you've seen Elon Musk, like 5 steps of, you know, how to make, you know, business, I guess better. And the one is, kind of remove the steps you don't need, remove the bottlenecks, remove those, delete those steps. And that for me is going to be 2 things that I'm very passionate about is automating. So that's how I can help them. Their processes that they're doing manually, I will look to provide resources to speed that up, to make them more efficient. That's one. And any process, and I'm telling you, there's a lot in the business, and sign off, or do this, or, you know, various levels of check. Like, that's what I want to get into and remove those if we don't need them. And that, along with driving kind of, you know, the vision, is going to be my major focus over the next maybe few weeks, just to make their lives easier. And as they start, and for me, there's no such thing as a silver bullet in any business. It's incremental changes which lead to the big bang. So if I can figure up in one department 3% share and 3% there, and 2% share and 2%, I lost track, I think it's about 10% altogether, and then 20% somewhere else, like that adds up. And then people start like, wow, I've got all this extra time, and that is my role. And yes, to still solve all the problems. And they come to me again. Now I ask the guys when they come with the problem, I push them a little bit to get to a solution, because they're just saying no. I'm like, okay, but how? And we eventually get there. But yeah, so for me, it's just to make their life easier. And but at the same time, in the founding story and people listening, it depends where you're on the thing. If you're like literally in survival, or you need to get your hands dirty, you're not thinking about all the other teams. You're literally just thinking of that. And how do I bring the best product, or different stages. But fortunately, I do have the time now, and I'm going to invest it back in my people to let them succeed.
Amazing, man. I love the way that you also describe that, because I've had a couple conversations with people about the term founder mode that's popped up in the past year or so, the past couple of months. And actually can't remember when that post was, but the point was, you just spoken about that practically, what it looks like in action, right? Like that's a very unique thing about being the founder rather than the CEO. Is it's like, I'm free up now, and it's like, how do I automate? How do I tweak? Where's the percentage improvements? And it's like, let me go collaborate with people, unlock things. But it's also like what you've learned from a skill set now is about the fact that you've learned the power of what it means to actually hand over and empower other people to do it. So you'll get in, you'll like jump over someone, and it's like you'll tinker and fool around, but then it's like, okay, cool, but I'm going to let you, what do you think? What are you going to run with this? And then duck. And like, that's, I can imagine you having a lot of fun.
Oh, I was about to say, I'm like, I'm really enjoying where we are, because it's such a creative time. So I can come up with the craziest ideas, build like, even actually, I'll build like a little model, or I'll build this, and I don't have the time to finish it off, but like there's so many different cool areas to solve, and we're in a big growth. It's a really, really nice place to be. And I'm really enjoying it. And that's kind of rare, because my story is like almost in its 6th year, and you build, and then, we grow, houses grow, and then now we're growing again through, Dis-Chem, because we waited for that. And it almost feels kind of like the beginning, but with a lot more kind of experience. So yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, it's fantastic, man. So this is what it's all about. This is what we all work so hard towards, is get that. So enjoy it while you have it, because you will continue to do so. Because like I even spoke to Yoron Asabi, who is the founder of Digital Solutions Group. I mean, like 1,200 people, and a ramp up to like 1,500 people soon. He also feels like he's only just getting started in his scale, but he's having the time of his life. All right, so love it for you, man. I hope you can continue to maintain that.
And that's just one thing on that. It's very important for the business. When your leader is enjoying it, it filters through. When your leader is, it's people can feel the energy. So very important.
Totally. Okay, so I obviously want to continue with this enthusiasm, and I want to get into Act 3, but there's one other pin that we need to get back to, and that's talking about the quality and customer experience, right? So now, things get a little bit worse before they get better. Talk to me around like why that's the case, like why you think that's normal, what you learned from your experience.
Look, I mean, it pains me to say why I'm going to think it's normal, because it shouldn't be normal. Your standards are your standards. But as I was saying, people will come in. So if you think of your agents, your call center agents, it takes about maybe 2 to 4 months for them to be fully up to speed and a tenured agent, to understand the product, to understand the pitch, to understand the clientele. So you will always have people coming in, no matter how much training you do, a real life scenario, you can practice for a date in the mirror 1 million times, but you got to go sit there and actually talk to the person and realize, oh, no, I don't know, or no, those kind of things. And that's a learning curve. So it may not be perfect in the beginning. There's no way that I can do that. But what we quickly learned, what I quickly learned, was that you need strong individuals to put in strong foundational structures to make sure that when you pick that up, you can quickly rectify it through training, through whatever it is. I'm talking about the sales world mostly, but the same with client experience. You get bombarded. How does that, how do you make sure that you can get back within a certain time frame? So easier said than done. It sounds like a generic thing, but you have to have the right people. You have to trust in the right people, that your operational people need that solid foundation. So before that growth thing, my advice would be, if you're just about to enter, make sure your foundations are strong. Understand that the wheels will come off in certain things. And in that moment, you need to fall back on whatever that structure you put in place and kind of follow it, trust in it, and also adapt over time. And that's kind of, it was the right people. And I mean, again, we learned through time. But now, I mean, it's much easier. We're going through another growth phase, and those structures are in place for us to hopefully be a lot better. But it also has to be embedded in your culture. Client experience has to be part of who you are. It has to be something that you really deeply appreciate. And then I think people take it very seriously.
So talk to me practically how you did that, because obviously for me, outside a bird's eye view, I can abstract this in the sense of like, because when you're going from a team of 10 to a team of 50 to like a team of, how actually big is your team right now?
I actually don't know. We're closing in on 200, somewhere around there. Yeah.
So basically when you're crossing these moments of like 10 to 50, 50 to 100, 100 to 150, etc., like it's not just a change. There's an organizational design change that needs to happen. Because in the early days, it's like you can impart this knowledge through by being present with people and coaching them. But then the point now is like, now you need kind of standards and standardization, standard operating procedures and how things work. But also you now need managers or team leaders to now be empowered with the principles and understanding the culture in terms of what's the gray area stuff in between, and how do you kind of fall back on doing that? And that's the stuff that needs to be coached in. But then there's roles and structures, and it's like, yes, we're like this innovative startup, but we need some kind of formalization at the same time. So it's just, there's just so much that changes because it's like we need to keep up with all these customers that we have. And I think that that's super challenging. It goes from like you've solved an external innovation problem, now you need to handle an internal innovation problem to keep up with the promises that you've had. Right. So that's my view on the situation. What I want to know is what did you practically do when going through that?
So it's such a good question. It is quite a difficult one. I think, and that's when you're growing rapidly and making sure that, your procedures are in place and everything. What I found will work for us again. And again, it's not a generic thing. I really, truly believe, maybe take a step back. I heard the saying once before I started the business is that if you, as a hiring manager, as a founder, if you're that kind of manager that always wants to be the smartest person in the room and always wants you to make the decisions and be the man or the woman or the person, then you'll go out and you'll actually hire people below you, and you actually create, and it's a great saying, you create a company of dwarves, right? But if you go out and understand that you should not be the smartest by definition, you should go there and empower people to bring out the solutions, and you guide and you nourish, and then you go out and hire people that better than you, create a company of giants, right? Now, it sounds cliche and generic, but the one thing we've done incredibly well is we've not somehow, I mean, you have to have a strong vision and a strong, but we brought together some of the smartest, most talented, and I personally, I'm completely being biased, but I think we have the strongest young exec in South Africa. You see just the brilliance of these people, the challenging and the support we have on a day-to-day. It is my proudest thing. And then that filters down to everyone within the company, because that level. So the reason I'm saying it is as a strong decree almost in the beginning with me and my co-founder, Josh, is we were like, it was about getting the best people, the absolute best, right? In the right positions. And we trusted that they would get the right people and all those things. So when we scaled, we didn't actually have the wheels coming off so much. I had the right people to manage it, and having the right people is also understanding not just on performance, on culture, right? And because they understood the culture so much and who we are and what we're about, they disseminated that information, and, those foundationals, were already there. So from a client experience, we were actually quite okay. And internally making sure that the messages, your heads are so strong. And sometimes when they're not quite aligned, you kind of bring them back and that thing. But that was that trust in the people below that really will do the right thing for the business and for the people, and disseminate it and be kind of aligned. So it's cliche, but what got us through, because we made it through that, was our people. And it was very strong hires early on.
So, I mean, that was exactly what I was going to say. You nailed it at the last point is the obvious part is getting really great hires in. What I want to know is, how did you get it right in terms of like the codifying your culture and cascading that down? How did you handle that?
Well, a lot of the people that came on in the beginning is people that I either knew socially or from work, before. So the way it started was me and Josh, the co-founder, we started together. And the people we brought on in the early days, a large part of them we had worked with before, or we knew them, so we knew the caliber of people, the integrity around them. And for me, those are the founding members, and when you're so aligned and you know what you're going to get from the person, and you know how you work together, or socially, the trustworthy, everything's about trust in the world, and especially in business. That for me, so my advice would be, in the beginning, you you can't be taking massive chances. Like, it's this weird thing to say. I mean, we did, and some of them were brilliant, but a large part was I knew what I was getting, and the people in, and that gave me a lot of comfort and a lot of trust. So that's kind of, and I think most startup, if you look at all founding stories, I'm pretty sure the people original are people that they know, this person came on because I believed in the vision and I knew this from working. It's just how it is. And I think that gives you a strong base.
100%. Oh, now with the situation of rebranding into Dis-Chem Life, right? And moving into that I've obviously got a whole bunch of other questions. We're going to get back in the path of enthusiasm, but now just like on the part of culture, right? Is like you've now integrated with a very large corporate. And I think that to where we started right in the beginning, is the fact that when you've got great people, you've got really capable people in terms of leadership and the board support of Dis-Chem as well. You've got a shared vision, shared missions. Like you really want to improve healthcare and the distribution of that within South Africa. So like there's that motivation to begin with is there, but surely there's some kind of culture change. Surely there's some kind of org design change in this process. Like, help me understand what the impact of that was.
It's, again, you bang on with your questions today. So it is, and any founder going through kind of this kind of change, it's very, very interesting. And traditionally you would think, a corporate and different, but when I just want to talk about Dis-Chem. When you look at innovation is one thing, and you look at the kind of, and this is if you don't know anyone from Dis-Chem, right? And you go and look at their strategy, and it really is, it's to broaden healthcare, as you said, and it's a very powerful thing. They, as Dis-Chem, as a company, as a brand, they really want to make as much change in South Africa and help South Africa, and that resonates, right? And the reason I'm saying is before I went and I understood what they stand for as a brand, as a company, but the reason, one of the massive things that allowed the two companies to gel so well is the synergy between teams, okay? And the team that we work with on a day-to-day basis, young, dynamic, ambitious, tenacious, same goal. And the reason why it works so well is because our North Star is exactly the same, right? And all we are both focused on how we get there together, how both companies, how both arms work together to get there. And I said this, now, Cam, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I'm definitely a type, and I like getting things done. So, I as I said earlier, I'm the kind of person, my inbox is 0 every day. I respond to everything I get back. So I try not to be the bottleneck, because it's just I guess it just wouldn't sit well. I couldn't go to bed. I would be too I have to reply. Good and bad. But the reason why I'm saying it is when I started working with the Dis-Chem team intricately last year when we started, I almost want to say I met my match. Like their team is busy. Like I would send an email at 11. They would send at 11 and 2 minutes pass. And then I was like, oh my God, I got to reply, because I need my inbox at 0. And you get into this thing. And the reason why I'm telling it is that when cultures are so aligned in terms of ambition, in terms of the way we work, it's been an amazing journey. And we pushed each other. Hey, like as a company, as Dis-Chem Life, as OneSpark, we are like, we would go and say, we want this. And they would say, we want this. And the solutions are just so brilliant. So to be honest, it's been an amazing journey, and it hasn't changed much, right? We driving a lot of the direction alongside our partner. We just both want to succeed. So everything's in the best interest of that North Star. And when it's there and the teams are so aligned and culture and everything, like it's been a really, really easy transition. And it's something that probably a lot of founders would come here and say because they have to, but genuinely in our case, it's really worked. And they're amazing. They're just so much fun. So it's a really good place. And that makes a difference, because if it wasn't like that, then, some companies may struggle.
Yeah, I think what's really surprising me from this conversation is that when the perception that a lot of people in startups and small businesses view corporates to be is these like archaic bureaucracies, super slow. They don't even know what innovation is. They don't even know how to do it and think about it. And it's like, and this is just like the bias that a lot of people in the startup world have. But the way that you talk about it is like, it sounds like the partnership was a no-brainer. Is that when you had those conversations at the table, you realized how aligned you were. You see these behaviors. It's like we work the same way, right? We operate in the same way. You show the same level of intent. Like there's similar levels of capability and drive and desire here. Like I don't feel like I need to radically change as a founder or as a leadership team, and we just get one another. And like sure, like that's obviously sort out the details. And yes, it's going to be a lot more complicated in the process of that, but like it makes it easy for you to want to do this.
Cam, you hit the nail. I'm literally getting goosebumps. And it's funny because I'm almost taking a step back, and I'm really enjoying this interview and talking to you, because it's allowing me that we launched crazy work. You launched a couple of weeks ago, and like it's the first time this is actually the first time I'm starting to take a bird's eye view. Be like, yo, that actually is really cool. So thank you for that. That's kind of that unique moment. But
I'm grateful that I could share in this reflection with you.
no, and I appreciate, like, I actually haven't taken the time to do it. So I appreciate that. And I think for me, it's a large degree down to the team and their leadership. And again, like, I don't know how much you know about the Dis-Chem. If you look at, the CEO, and I briefly discussed it with Roy. Roy is just brilliant. The way he thinks, the tenacity and an ambition that he wants to drive, and it filters through his team. The team below him are brilliant. They carry out that vision. So it's very similar structures with us. We got a very strong leadership team who believe, and again, that's why they work so well together. And it's the dynamic that makes it very easy. So I can't speak for other corporates. I can only speak for what I know here, and it's driven from the top down. And we're very in sync with what we're trying to do and push boundaries. And that's why our North Star is so aligned. So that's what makes it very easy. And that's why we will be very successful in what we do.
And yeah, I love the emphasis with which you discuss this, because again, as someone who's a strategist, strategic thinker, but also a psychologist, I've known for a very long time how important these intangible statements around vision, purpose, mission, direction, strategic intents, like there's all these different labels for it. But the clarification of that, it really accelerates the ability to say, are we on the same page, right? Is there just a fundamental level where, like, I don't need to question whether or not we're on the same team? And that allows for not just a driving motivation, but you just need to figure out the how, right? Like the thing is, Simon said a cynic will some people give him a certain ramp, but he really is spot on with this.
But there you go. You nailed it. And again, the last thing I'll say, and again, you being a psychologist, you have to enjoy the people you work with, right? And obviously, we have a very interesting dynamic, and we have our company that now transition, but a whole new other company and the people. And yeah, we're very fortunate. But again, as I said, when I sat in that first time we pitched, the synergy was just so good, and what we aligned, and the vision, and at Dis-Chem, this is intricate to kind of making healthcare and broadening healthcare to society, through financial services and primary health. It really is part of their strategy, and it's part of our strategy, and it works very, very well.
Naturally, things change. Even though the direction's there, the North Star is there, everything's aligned. I mean, you're going at the point where you're scaling quite rapidly, you're hiring lots of people, right? So you're selling more than ever. But also you're formulating new products, right? You've got new offerings that are coming into the mix here. You're really accelerating this growth and focus. Now, by joining within the group, naturally that's going to change, right? I mean, look, there's still going to be some things that are going to carry on exactly as you've handled them, because it works, right? Obviously, you don't want to change that too much. But now, things are going to be different, right? I obviously know that, but I don't know what the difference is. So, like, talk to me around, like, what really is the before and after of your strategy now? Like, what was in a high level, what was your strategy then around how you wanted to grow the business versus now as Dis-Chem Life? What's the plan?
Very simply put, before, our big kind of USPs was convenience, speed, simplicity, and affordability. Really, I mean, that's what consumers want. I mean, in a nutshell. And it was targeting most of South Africa who wanted that, in a tough economic environment. And that was the offering. It's very much more complex than that. But that was the offering, and going after kind of, all markets in South Africa, all LSMs, and doing that. With kind of what we did was tech-enabled, but simplicity. So our motto was back to the basics, but 25 years ahead. That's what it was. It was back to simplicity. People don't want it complex, but 25, that was what it was. But take that chassis, take what we built from a tech component, right? And think of the ecosystem that Dis-Chem has, right? It is, you've got over 330 stores. And one of the pillars within the Dis-Chem framework is to expand, quite a lot over the next few years and build that out throughout all South Africa. So every single store, and I just going to explain it so you understand the power of what the Dis-Chem ecosystem actually is, right? It's not just distribution, right? Yes, it's massive. And yes, we're putting advisors in stores, and it's been incredible to see how well they're doing and the reception from clients and all of that. But the thing is, when you understand the ecosystem, so let's call it 330 stores nationwide. Every store has a clinic, Cam, which means that Dis-Chem owns the underwriting. So they So when you go in, they can assess risk better than anyone because they can do from an underwriting perspective, whatever test they want. They can, when designing the whole product, you can do new age tests that other people aren't even thinking of because you own that in the clinics, right? You can get, there's cost efficiencies at scale that we can provide and transfer that back to our clients. But fundamentally, we're getting information, clinical real-time information. And that is, people not sending in stuff which they can tamper. We are literally getting at source. Okay. So it's accurate. Now think about that. Then the second component within a Dis-Chem store is your pharmacy. Now a pharmacy, we think about life insurance. Life insurance is how do you manage risk? And managing risk is you need to know about the client. You want to incentivize them to, take their medication or become healthier. Now within the pharmacy, you can see how people are managing their conditions and their adherence to their medication, which is fundamental. And then you got the retail arm, so we can see what people buy. And the reason I'm saying it is when you look at that wealth of data and you look at our tech chassis that we have, okay, very quick, we brought, it down from, let's say, getting insurance a month to a couple minutes. Like our North Star is to get it in one click, bring all that information as we learn. Like that is the goal. It has never been done globally. So when you think of the ecosystem and how well Dis-Chem can manage the risk within the ecosystem, it's a no-brainer. Life insurance. So now we've taken everything that we have, our chassis, of all these things, affordability, of simplicity, tech enable. Now, as an enabler, we have all the health components, right? So now we can manage risk far better in our ecosystem than anyone, maybe globally. I mean, and it is a big maybe because yes, people may think, but think about that real-time data. We can pull them in. We get at source every single thing. So when you link the health component to life insurance, it's such a natural link, right? And we should be able to manage it incredibly well. So what it's manifested in, now it's getting back to your question, but you need to understand that ecosystem, otherwise this doesn't make sense. How does that get back? Now we have, Dis-Chem's size, there's north of 15 million people, that they touch in terms of people coming to the stores, over a period of time. That is the majority. That is a very big component of kind of the adult population in South Africa. Okay. So you touch everyone. So we're aligned in terms of our marketing across all LSNs, which is with our current product offering. Now you bring the health component and we want to reward people. So if you think about the risk side, I'm not going to go too much into it, but we offer rates like, for people with HIV and diabetes, which traditionally is very hard to get cover. Okay. Because we can manage it so well in our ecosystem. We know that they're taking the medication. We can get real-time feedback of where their levels are. We've honestly been able to take, traditionally in the market, if you are diabetic and a normal person's premium, I want to do it in numbers, is 1,000 Rand, right? As a diabetic, you're probably going to charge 3,000-4,000 Rand, right? More or less the same level, just because of, there's a worry from the insurance company. We've been able to take that 3,000-4,000 Rand because we can manage it in our ecosystem and bring that down almost to 1,000 Rand. Think about you are dealing with people who struggle where a demand is so high, where there's a massive. It is.
And I've got a
insane.
fundamental health problem that is now all my expenses just to manage my health. It's a huge level of stress as well. And I know I've got a health risk that applies to my family as well, and I got to protect them too. But it's just the affordability of any policy for that is actually unaffordable. And it's I know here and again, as the psychologist, there's shame. There's so much. It's there's something implicitly wrong with me. I can't provide for my family. I can't do this. I feel like I'm holding them back because of what's going on here. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I can see how life-changing that would be.
Bro, for me, this gives me goosebumps because what we're doing is inside that, yes, within a Dis-Chem, there's a big, we'll call it people with a chronic condition. But in South Africa, at a very prudent estimate, there's probably 15 million people living with a chronic condition, talking about diabetics, HIV, and you're right, people cannot get access to cover. It is so unaffordable. And what we've completely changed that narrative, we've used the Dis-Chem ecosystem in such an incredibly smart way to provide real-time value with people. It's a real problem. And it's something I'm so passionate about because it's an underserved market in South Africa where traditional insurance companies just say we can't really manage the risk, but we can. Dis-Chem Life, well, let's call it the broader group. Dis-Chem can. It's amazing. I'm just touching the surface of the product. We haven't got into product. We've looked at the funeral market where it's amazing. We offer the largest coverage in South Africa, right? People charge up to 70, 80,000 maximum. We've offered these boosts on our cover because we can manage the risk so well. From a life side, a Dis-Chem Life side, but the ecosystem of Dis-Chem, how they can manage it so well is that, let's say a person comes in our ecosystem and takes 50,000 Rand cover, okay, for a premium of 100 Rand. It's just easier with numbers, right? And to make it simple for you. So 50,000 Rand cover with a premium of 100. And let's say us and a competitor are both the exact same pricing, okay? 50,000 Rand and 100 Rand premium. With us, for that 100 Rand premium, we boost your cover from 50,000 to 125,000, right? Based on age and stuff. Free, like we don't charge anything else at no cost to the client because there are mechanisms in the Dis-Chem ecosystem that allows us to do that. But let me tell you that value that it offers to a client, right? Now you're offering some of the largest coverage in South Africa. You're giving dignified, funerals are expensive. And traditionally in this market, you're now creating something that very fundamentally, because it is so expensive, people buy from a couple companies and they can't get past that maximum limit because everyone rides at 70, 80,000. So, companies are all putting their expenses into it and the acquisition costs. So it just becomes unaffordable for a client because it keeps getting passed back onto them. So when you house it in one way and a smart way of doing it, we're unlocking, and this is a very, very high level, but basically you guys can get, massive amounts of cover at no additional cost. And there's various ways that within the Dis-Chem ecosystem, we can manage it, all that stuff on the risk side. And the last thing I'm going to talk about product, and then I'm going to come bring it together, but you have to understand the offering. Otherwise it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's easy to say a health-based kind of view on life insurance, but the value we're providing is amazing. The last thing, through the Extra Reward program, we designed alongside Dis-Chem. It's kind of a health management platform. It offers a free health check once a year, and based on that, you get put in 5 levels. Very simple. And based on your premium size, you can get up to 100% off shopping at Dis-Chem. So Cam, through the Extra Rewards, yes, you can walk into Dis-Chem and get up to 100% off. You can literally shop for free. Now, think how amazing that is. And I want to talk to you a little bit from a psychological perspective. This is not on the reward side. This is not risk, this is reward. This is not miles. This is not points where, yes, you accumulate and do it. Every single time that dopamine release, yes, I'm getting a little bit into the psychological point, a dopamine release of what you're saving there and there. And the bigger you're saving, the bigger that discount that you get. That's why people that's why they call it retail therapy. And that's why people look for savings and they feel good off that, because even though they're paying money, they feel good. Think about every time they shop, right? They're going to get up to 100% off. I mean, yes, there's limits and stuff, but it's an amazing thing. Let's say you walk in there, Cam, you shop and your bill is 2,200. You've engaged in our ecosystem, have the right premium. At 2,200, you'll have a 0 Rand and just walk out, on select goods. I mean, thousands and thousands in store. But the reason why is you're creating a very strong risk product, very strong that can stand by itself. Your life insurance is very strong, incredibly strong rewards structure, right? That incentivizes people looking after their health. And now you have an entire ecosystem, right, which kind of looks after all South Africa. We look after markets that, traditionally want funeral cover. You got your high LSM. And also people traditionally were, I wouldn't say excluded, but it was very difficult for them to get cover in the chronic space. And that's what we spoke about. So you asked me, who's my target market? The founding statement of the company was to democratize life insurance to the whole South Africa at a comprehensive insurance to all South Africa at affordable rates. And that's what we're on a mission to do. And we have the infrastructure. Dis-Chem has the infrastructure in terms of holistically to do that. Dis-Chem, through the Extra Rewards program, we can manage health in an incredible way. And honestly, and this is something I'm really passionate about. I know you joke around passionate about a lot, but this is something, we're not here just to protect lives, right? We're not just here at the end. We're here to save lives. We're here for all those cases where somebody comes in and picks up that there's something wrong in the journey because we've incentivized them right. And that prevents a debt. That prevents somebody losing their parents down the line. Keeping families together, brand is intact. There's such a bigger goal and you talk about scale. Yes, we did it. But now, with Dis-Chem's ecosystem, the infrastructure that they provide, and the North Star being to provide that to as many people as we can and change lives, very powerful combination.
And I'd say it goes one step further, is you're not even saving lives, you're also saving livelihoods.
Love it. I'm going to steal that from you next time people ask me that. I'm going to actually use that because it's a brilliant line. Because that's exactly what it is. It's lives and it's memories at those times, but it's also that income so that the family can carry on. No, it's unbelievable. I mean, you make your own life, but very, very fortunate, for the company to be in. We're in a really good place to design and deliver and change a lot of people's lives and provide very good coverage. So very excited about that.
Love it, Greg. I mean, I wish we were in the same room because this is so infectious. Like, I've got goosebumps having this conversation. I can only imagine if we were actually like chatting face to face. But we must change that soon. So looking forward now, right? Like, you're at this unbelievable juncture within the business. Just what does the future look like for Greg and for Dis-Chem Life?
Again, as I said, this is the first time I've actually been able to take a step back. Look, I'm not sure yet, in the sense that, there's so much opportunity within the Dis-Chem ecosystem and so many things that we can create. I want to come back to the now in the sense that I'm really loving what we're doing. The team, we're in a good place. And the reason I'm saying there's so many different places to innovate going forward. So our infrastructure is so strong in that, as I said, we learn so quickly. And where we go, the more information, the more data we have, the better we can get with our risk assessment, more accurate, and the better offerings we can offer on the risk side and the reward side. So where we go, the hard one, because we're just trying to stabilize now. So I know our journey has been startup, growth, kind of waiting for the deal. And we're just stopped because we only launched effectively a couple of weeks ago. So for me, it's about stabilizing. There is a national distribution rollout. I mean, you're going to start seeing us in all Dis-Chem stores. I mean, that's we're doing a POC now. So the idea is for us to push out so that will start coming. And you'll start to see, the 100% message from the reward side in stores, which is really nice. So every time you shop in there, just think of me. And if you need cover or you want to change, we can talk about it. I'll put you in touch with some good guys. But where does it hold? I think for us is to continuously push boundaries and the innovation. What's nice is we still have that startup culture. We still want to, break down the walls and see what we can do better and automate and innovate and build tech and product. So I think we're going to continuously do that. It's part of our DNA. I think now stabilization, and once we get stable, I think the growth, will be there, and just to continuously do good by our clients and design products that we really believe in and solve real world problems. I think for me, it's given us the ability to do that at scale and help millions of people, which previously was tens of thousands. And that scale, coming back to our original thing, when I started OneSpark, when I was a young boy and I loved South Africa, and this is a true story, my parents wanted to immigrate. And I said to them, I don't know how old I was, maybe I was 5. I said, cool guys, you go, I'll stay here with the dogs in the house, and you go and I'll just stay. And it has been embedded in me to make change. And I think, think about it now, accelerating that at that scale is something I'm so passionate about, and I'll continue to fight for. So that's also my North Star of helping South Africa.
And I think one thing I'd love to share with the audience about you that you shared with me before even recording, of just actually showing how much that you love South Africa, is that you got into a habit. I mean, you were born to get into financial services in South Africa, because you were what, 6 or 8, and like you were checking the newspaper to see what the rand dollar exchange rate was, just out of curiosity, as a proxy for how well the country was doing.
Exactly. Yeah, I think I know better. Again, like I was always acutely aware what's going on in South Africa. And you would go to school and whatever, people would leave and I just remember that was the only proxy I had at the time to get like some sort. I don't really understand business, but I would get really upset when the rand would go down. I'd be like, no, I didn't have a clue why, but it was definitely, it was a precursor to where I am now, and the future will hold. Like I will continue to fight as much as I can and lead the company and Dis-Chem Life as much as I can to get where we are as a company, where we want to be, but where South Africa and make my. And again, I've never ever believed that I can't move South Africa or anything that I want in the way that I want to. So I will never be a thing that I'll be like, okay, a small contribution. Like, for me, it's how much we can push the boundaries and how much change we can make. And that's kind of, I wouldn't say a legacy I want to leave, but it's something I'm deeply passionate about and I'll continue to fight for.
Love it. Greg, just to finish off, what's the one question that I haven't asked you, that I should have asked you, that you'd like to answer now?
My God, that you haven't asked me. You did such a good job of all around. I think it's such a good question. I think you've asked we discussed so much around the business and around me and the story. I think for me, one of the most important things is the people that I built it with. And I know I spoke a lot about leadership and stuff. I think, the fellow founders that I've done it with has been instrumental, and, the good and the bad. I think understanding and picking those as partners would be a question, that I would say something that I'd like to kind of touch on, because it's such an important thing that you need to get right in a successful business.
Tell me more, right? I want to understand a bit about your co-founders.
I guess you're answering my own question now. So look, I think starting a business is like a marriage, right? It's like a relationship. You're going to spend a hell of a lot of time with that person, probably more than, you're spending with your partner or your spouse. So there's 2 fundamentals. You have to pick somebody, and you got to get this right, because it can make or break a company. You got to pick somebody who, I found, this is my personal thing, is very aligned to who you are, the vision, your North Star, that kind of stuff. And obviously you have to be brilliant. I mean, they have to be fantastic. They have to really be the best. We challenge each other on that level, but also a great human being. You have to enjoy the person. And the one thing I will tell you is that, and it's actually really a nice story, Josh, who's the original co-founder, me and Josh, and before we started the business, I wanted to go, I've always loved the US. So we went to New York, and he's got a lot of family, I've got a lot of family there. Went to New York, we lived together for 2 months, and you can learn a lot about a person when you live in a 2-bedroom apartment in Manhattan. And the one thing I'll tell you, Cam, is in the 2 months, and it was, we used to do our thing at nights and go out to meet people or chill, whatever. And he wakes up very early for gym, and I used to gym after. But in the day, we'd work together, and it was just the most incredible time. And I'm remembering it. We didn't fight once. It was so respectful. He's just such a great person, and comes from such a good family. And for me, that meant a hell of a lot, right? Understanding how brilliant this person is and how much we challenge each other and how much we push each other to change the world. But understanding is fundamentally a great, great human. And for me, that was very, very important. So then there was Josh, and along the journey, so we started it. And then later on, various people came, but the first person was this guy, Francis, right? And the three of us in the beginning, and as it's evolved, it's become bigger and bigger in terms of the founders. But I want to talk about the original guys. Is that why it's so important, Cam, is because as a founder, it's lonely. It is majority of your time is it's not W's. It's not win after win. It's loss. It's L, and you have a small win, and it's L. And what I found was so amazing is having 2 individuals for a large part of it who are brilliant, unbelievable, creative, technical brilliance, that we challenge each other. You are comfortable with each other and strong enough. You can have tough debates. We can tell each other we wrong. You're going to be arguing a hell of a lot, right? But to find that in a person, so this is the biggest thing. This is probably one of the biggest predictors of success in terms of how well your founders get together, how they gel, how they deal with conflict. And there were times where there's just been different times in the business where, guys are tired and whatever, and just overworked and stuff. And, your something will go wrong, and it'll be like, oh God, I can't, why am I even doing this? And someone else will stand up, someone will say, listen, we'll go, Karen, go, how are we going to fix this? We're going to do it. And honestly, so many times, where I was just like, it's difficult, it's hard, it's lonely, there's so much you got to shoulder. And they would stand up and do it. And I've done it for them, but I remember the times too vividly. And, they would stand up and just be like, this is how we're going to fix it. This is how we're going to carry on going and provide the solutions in a time where I was tired, where I didn't feel like doing it. And for me, leaning on them, and we all lean on each other, it's been the most incredible thing. I couldn't have picked, obviously Josh was the original co-founder, and Francis, and a lot of times where he's picked up, and then the rest of the team. But yeah, it's just been an amazing journey, and enjoying the company, and the little victories, when you close a deal or make a big sale, and I phone Josh, and we'd be like, look what we've made. It's amazing. And those little moments make it all worthwhile. But fundamentally, I got to say, the people you do it with, you heard my story, but their stories, yes, intertwined a lot, but incredible humans, incredible individuals. And a large part of the success is because, of this founding team and being so strong and so North Star driven. And yes, we're different, but, when we come together, we'll fight for each other. And yeah, I wouldn't have picked any 2 people better. So it's been an amazing journey.
Love it. What a great way to end it off on. Greg, thank you so much for being on the Founder Files. And I can't wait to see your next chapter with Dis-Chem Life.
Appreciate it. Really enjoyed the time. I must say, you guys, I did tons of interviews, but this was really nice. It was deep. It was really getting to the right points. There's enough time. So you guys are onto a good thing. So well done. And it's why you built such a incredibly successful kind of business and stuff. So thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Greg. As you saw, I managed to go full passion mode, talking all about Metavolve, what we do. So in terms of this last part here, I'm not going to have a moment to tell you about why it is that you should consider working with us. I'm just going to simply explain what the process looks like. So I went in depth around what is our flagship offering, which is our scaling master plan. It's obviously a journey to go on. That's not really for everyone, right? So for certain key people at certain points, it's what they really want to get into. But beforehand, what it's like to work with us, it's just a first engagement to curiosity goal, right? Are we a good fit? Is there a problem that's meaningful to be solved? Do you actually need us right now? After that, we then go through to a breakthrough stage, right? Let's really define the problem well, see if it can be solved. Let's see if we can make a breakthrough in your thinking in the short amount of time. It's a promise that we make, And part of the value that we say there is that if you didn't get the value you're looking for, you didn't make that breakthrough, you just pay us what you think it's worth, right? So we're very committed to that, and we're really committed to unlocking this breakthrough in your thinking before we're really committing to a long-term relationship together. And then if it's something that you're interested in, if it makes sense, then yes, then we can look at a scaling master plan to really translate all the strategy, all this thinking from your head into your management team and go down that path. But at the end of the day, what we're fundamentally trying to do is ensure that as many founders as possible can remove the bottleneck from themselves so they can actually take a holiday where they really switch off whilst their business is growing, and that their team can really execute their strategy while they focus on growth. Probably need to work on that new statement now as I was transparent about that bottleneck problem, but you get the point. Right, so if you want to reach out to me, please do. But in the meantime, thank you very much for listening to a full episode of the Founder Files. I will probably check you in that link for the 30-minute curiosity call in the description of the podcast below. But until that curiosity call, or at least till the next episode, I'll see you then. Cheers for now.